and go ahead and get started. So again, welcome everybody. My name is Karen Chopra. I am a career counselor in the Washington, D.C. metro area. I've been in private practice for 25 years, but before that, I spent 10 years, almost 11 years working for the federal government at the U.S. Department of Commerce and the International Trade Administration, and then at the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. I was one of the people who was responsible for the original North American Free Trade Agreement, one of many. It was a negotiating team of over 100. And so that's how long ago my stint in the government was. My colleague Linda Era is here monitoring the chat. She is also a career counselor. She is listed on the resources that we'll be posting in the chat. And I wanted to do this workshop because, I wanted to do this workshop because there's just this feeling of, oh my gosh, the world is ending. And the world is not ending. That's our purpose here today. So there's no need to panic. We're going to talk about how to make a plan and how to deal with what is coming at you. I know that wasn't what you were hoping to be doing at this point, but that's what we're going to be talking about, making a plan. So my website is here, although actually my LinkedIn profile is probably the best place to find me. On LinkedIn, I've got a public profile, and that's where I'll be posting the links to this. They will eventually make it to my website, but LinkedIn is a little faster and in my control. We are going to be doing upcoming sessions. So next Tuesday, we're going to be doing networking. Nobody roll your eyes at me. I know nobody likes networking, but it is critical for the job search, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. And it's really not as bad as you fear or think. So next week, we're going to be talking about networking. I'm not going to be available the following Tuesday, but then Tuesday, March 11th, we're going to be talking about resume and LinkedIn basics, that your marketing documents. Again, this is not going to go in depth. This is enough to get you started so that you can access other resources that are out there. On March 18th, we're going to do interview prep. And then on March 25th, we're going to do my favorite topic, salary negotiation. One of the things that I brought forward from my career in the federal service was an understanding of how to negotiate. That's what 10 years of trade negotiations taught me. And so it is one of my specialties, and I really enjoy talking about trade negotiations. So hopefully you will be able to make it for that session. I enjoy the rest of it too, but trade negotiations is a particular favorite. The registration links for those sessions are going to be in the handout for today's session. Linda will be posting the handout for today's session in the chat. And I'm not going to give you copies of my slides because the handout covers all the text that's in the slides in a much more efficient way. All right, so today's objective is to give you an overview of the entire job search process. So from soup to nuts, this is what a job search looks like. You are going to, in the course of the evening, go, hey, I need more. I need more detail. I need more. I need more. Obviously you do. We'll cover more detail in future sessions, but there are lots of free resources out there. And again, I've got a resource handout. Linda will be posting that link in the chat as well. There are lots of free resources out there. They're overwhelming. So if you have a sense after tonight, this is what I want to focus on. I want to focus on my LinkedIn. I want to focus on my resume. I have an interview coming up. I want to do interview prep. So this should give you a roadmap of this is what you need to do, and here's where I'm going to focus. And then you can tap the resources for additional help. And please look at that resource handout. One of the resources I will point out is Kyle Dietrich, who is an international development person as well as a coach, has compiled a group of, at this point, I think it's north of 300 coaches who are offering free coaching sessions to people who have been affected by the federal government's layoffs. So federal government, contractors, or organizations that have been funded by the federal government, and that funding has been affected, pulled, stopped. So if you meet those conditions, you can tap some free counseling there. There's also on there going to be a free LinkedIn session tomorrow at noon done by one of my colleagues who's a LinkedIn specialist, free. So if you're like, I have no idea what to do with LinkedIn, tomorrow at noon would be a wonderful time to log into that session. So there are lots of resources there. There are counselors, there are resume writers. All of those things are going to be in the resources handout. Right, before we talk about what a job search is, let us talk about what a job search is not. A job search is not sitting at your computer in your stretchy pants, frantically filling out job search applications online, okay? That is not a job search. To those of us in the career profession, that is known as flinging resumes into the electronic abyss. They pretty much, that's where they go, into an abyss. Those job postings, many of them aren't real. Some of those job postings are actually scams. And so I really don't want you spending a lot of time, not no time, but not a lot of time applying online. Those online postings are important. We'll talk about how to use them, but that's not what a job search is. And I'm going to tell you what a job search looks like. But if you're sitting at your computer all day long, feeling desperate because you are not getting any hits on your online applications, statistically speaking, that's just what happens. Right now, because AI tools allow people to essentially apply to as many jobs as they want, a lot of jobs are getting 700, 800, 1,000 applications. And nobody's reading those things. They're actually going and tapping their network going, do you know anyone who might fill my job? So that's why networking becomes so very important. So please, it is not just applying online. The online postings are part of a broader strategy, and that's what we're going to talk about. Excuse me. All right, let's talk about job search metrics and what it looks like to be job seeking. If you are still employed, then you should be looking to spend 5 to 10 hours a week looking for a job, about an hour a day during the week. I don't encourage people to look nights and weekends to try to do job searching nights and weekends. Your brain is tired. It is really hard to do it then. See if you can find time early in the day, every day, to put in some time in your job search. If you are not employed, then a job search looks like 25 to 35 hours a week. Not more than that, 25 to 35 hours a week. And again, my recommendation is 5 to 6 hours, 5 days a week. Be there when your kids get home from school, binge watch whatever you want at night, and take the weekends off. Because this is a marathon, not a sprint, and you're going to need that time. According to statistics compiled by our wonderful civil servants at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as of December of 2024, it was taking about 10.4 weeks. The median job search was taking 10.4 weeks. For those of you who aren't government statisticians, median means 50% of job searches were taking longer than 10.4 weeks. What I usually tell clients to think about is 3 to 6 months from start to finish of a job search. And it could be longer than that. So I say this so that you can plan psychologically, financially. If you're in the DC area and you're not reading Michelle Singletary, who is a financial columnist in the Washington Post, you might check her stuff out because she is talking about financially how to prepare for the job search ahead. But as we talk tonight and I describe this process, I want you to think, once I start searching, it could take me 3 to 6 months to land. And I need to be ready for that. My spouse needs to be ready for that. My family needs to be ready for that. And that's why you don't want to be searching just 24 hours a day. You're going to need a break. It's hard work. All right. The other thing that I will just say is there are lots of free resources. You'll see the free resources posted that I've uncovered, posted in the chat. Use them fully. But there are going to be things that you are going to want to invest in your job search. Please don't stint on investing in things that are going to help you shorten your job search. Frequently, if you shorten your search by even a week, you will have paid for much of the investment that you have made. The things that you may wish to invest in would be individual career counseling. There may be things like trying to figure out a new job search target, which we'll be talking about in a minute. You may need a few sessions with an individual counselor to help you figure out your personal job search goal. A resume writer or a LinkedIn writer, if you are really super intimidated by that and that is getting in your way, hire somebody to get you over that hump. And please invest in good interview clothes. Okay. We've all been living in pandemic stretchy pants for 5 years now. Go into your closet, pull out whatever your interview clothes are, make sure that they don't have moth holes in them and that they still fit. If you've been using the semi-glutides and you're in the process of losing weight, fabulous. Get something that fits now. If you just had a baby and you haven't quite got the baby weight off, don't worry about it. You will. No shame, no judgment, but get a suit that fits now. If Crocs are what you consider your dress shoes, time to hit DSW and get a nice pair of interview shoes ready to go. Those are investments that are worth making. You don't have to go get an Armani suit. You can go to Nordstrom Rack, but get a nice suit or a nice jacket. For women, I'm not looking at skirt suits anymore. It can be a nice jacket and a nice pair of pants, but make sure that you have got that ready to go, because hopefully the interviews will come sooner rather than later. Okay, so now buckle up. I'm from New Jersey. I can talk fast. This is what a job search looks like. The very beginning of every job search begins with a clear job search target. You cannot find what you do not know you're looking for, right? So you need a target statement, and that target statement will drive the rest of the job search. The target statement is simply the answer to the question, so what job are you looking for? And that answer cannot be, I'll take anything, or I don't know, because the person on the receiving end of that can't help you with either of those answers. Where do you want to go? I don't know. They can't, they have nothing to give you. Where do you want to go? I don't know, but it's in the direction of New York. New York, huh? North, head that way. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to give them enough of a direction that they can start giving you suggestions about where to head next. And it should be one sentence. It should be really crystal clear. Networking is like a game of telephone, the kids' game of telephone. The more information you put it at the beginning, the more garbled it will be by the time it comes out. And you don't want your message garbled as it goes out your network. So I had a little fun with this. Some sample target statements. A target statement might be, I'm looking for a position focused on environmental geology. I did look that up. I was looking for environmental specialties and found environmental geology, right? Or I'm looking for a program or project manager role in the data science area. If you are ready to look for something slightly different, consider using the in my ideal world language, which lets people know I'd really like to end up on Broadway in New York. But if you can get me to Brooklyn, I'll take it. Right? So that language of in my ideal world, I'm looking for a role where, I can use my experience in education, perhaps in a government affairs or an advocacy role. Right? So that's what a target statement looks like. That target statement should start to make obvious what the target list is. And you will need a target list because this is part of your job search and networking process. A target list is simply all the places that hire environmental geologists, right? That list, this is where all my clients look at me and they sort of look cross-eyed at me. The list should be 50 to 100 organizations large. That list should consist of 50 to 100 organizations. It is essentially the beginning of your sales funnel. Right? So we start with, 75 organizations and we network into those organizations, and a handful of those organizations have a position, and you get interviewed at 2 of those, and maybe you get 1 job offer. If you start with a really narrow funnel at top, it is going to drop out on you before you've actually gotten to a job. And if you start with a small list and go out to your network and ask them about these 5 organizations, and then come back with the next 5. I did have a client who did this once because I saw it because he was emailing, which is also another no-no. And it was just like every 5, and nobody was responding because there's networking fatigue. Tap your network once, tap it well, get what you can from it, and move on. And that's why you compile the target list at the beginning. So as we're going along here this evening, just start jotting down your homework assignments from this. If any of you are spinning your wheels going, I have no idea where to get started. Oh, by the end of tonight, you should have some good ideas. So putting together a target list would be one of the things that you could work on. Again, I know nothing about environmental geology, zero. But it took me more time to type than to actually find these company names. I just Googled companies that hire environmental geologists. And obviously, of course, the extractive companies are there, the Shells and the Exxons, but there's also Freeport McMoran, company I had once heard about, and Pioneer Natural Resources, a company I had never heard of. And then there are all the consulting firms that do environmental geology. And, Jacobs is one I'd never heard of. I threw it on this list. And then I was talking to a client. She goes, have you ever heard of this firm, Jacobs? As a matter of fact, I just found them in a Google search. So on my website, and there, I think Linda's got a link to drop to my website. There's resources there, and resources to build out a target list is on my website. But really, a good Google search will do it for you, or DuckDuckGo, or whoever you happen to use. All right, so now we have our target statement and the target list that flows from that target statement. What happens next? Everyone's favorite, now we network. We do not go online and start applying for jobs. Now we network. We'll get into this in much more detail next week, but here's what it looks like overall. You are going to start with your first degree connections. These are the people who are motivated to help. They've been calling you, they've been texting you, they're feeling really, really bad. But they don't have a job for you. In almost all cases, they do not, because you'd have it already. They don't have a job for you. Your job lies out there in the second, third, fourth degree connections. That's where it is. Those people don't know you, you don't know them, and they're not terribly motivated to help right now. So we're going to use our first degree connections to develop contacts inside our target company. And it's going to look like this. You can start by thinking about 3 of your nearest and dearest friends. I don't care what industry they're in, just 3 people that you are happy to have this conversation with. You're going to say to them, I'd like 5 minutes, maybe 10 of your time to help me think through my job search. And they will say, sure. And you can do this over dinner, over drinks, on a quick phone call. The one place you're not going to do this is in an email. If you send somebody your 50 organizations or 75 organizations in a target list and your 3 questions and ask them to type their answers, that's a huge lift. They can talk very quickly and give you a lot of information, and it's your job to record all of that. Don't send them an email with these questions and make them do this work. Right? One of the rules of good networking is the responsibility for the job search stays here on our shoulders. As soon as our networking counterparts feel it heading their way, they're gone. They're like, well, I gotta go. Don't have time for this. Not my job search. So that's a key rule of networking. We take responsibility for all of this work that needs to happen. Okay. And then with your 3 people, you're going to use the target list script, which is super simple. We've already pretty much built it. Here's my target statement. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's my target list, and you hand it to them. So maybe you keep your target list on your phone in the notes function, or you keep a piece of paper with it on, tucked in your wallet or in your pocket. So here's my target list. Take a look at my target list for me. And then answer just 3 questions. Who am I missing? Because they may look at this and go, wait, if you've got Jacobs, what about this consulting firm? What about that consulting firm? What about this consortium? So they may have names that they add. What do you know about any of these places? This is where we're going to collect gossip. We're looking for, information on, it's a great place to work, it's a terrible place to work. This might be outdated. It may be some axe grinding on the part of your contact. It's just good to know because your interviewer will never tell you these things. So these are things you're going to do some due diligence on. And then you're going to ask the 3rd question, which is the springboard from your first degree out to your 2nd and 3rd degree. Do you know anyone at any of these places, or someone who might know someone? And all of a sudden they're like, so my college roommate is married to somebody who works at Shell or Exxon. Great. Can I talk to your college roommate? Do you think they'd put me in touch with their spouse? That's how we move from people who are highly motivated out to the people who probably have our job and that we need to talk to. Again, if you're like, I don't like this process, that's what we're going to do more detail next week, right? Once you get in to your target list companies and you're inside the Chevron or the Jacobs or the Freeport McMorans, You are not going to ask anyone for a job. This is where the network for a job got a bad rep. Everyone shortens it into, I need a job. Do you know anyone who's hiring? So the answer to that question is almost always no, nothing. And now the conversation is sort of a bit on the negative side, like, no, I don't know anything. And they're backing away, right? Because they can sort of feel that I need something coming at them. So we're not going to ask them, are you hiring? Do you know anyone who's hiring? Because that's not actually the most useful question. What we're going to say is, I'm doing research in preparation for a job search, and I could use your help. And then you're going to ask them a series of questions. It's in the networking script that's on my website. We'll talk about it next week. But you're going to ask them a series of questions about what's going on in the company. 20 to 30 minutes. You're going to extract a lot of good information from many of the people you speak with. You're going to follow up with a thank you note, or it's a thank you email these days, a thank you email. And then you're going to follow up with a LinkedIn invitation. And if you're looking at me going, Karen, I don't have a LinkedIn. I do, but I haven't looked at it. I don't remember the password. We're going to get there. Don't you worry. But you will send them a LinkedIn invitation, because this is the way you keep track of who you've networked with. And then when you get a job, you can go out on LinkedIn and say, thanks to everyone who helped me. Here's where I am. And you've informed your network. You will also send personalized thank you notes. We'll talk about that again as part of networking. But LinkedIn makes it easy to stay in touch with people. I may not make you love LinkedIn, but I can certainly help you feel confident in LinkedIn. And if you're looking at those resources going, isn't this amazing? Everything that's on there came through LinkedIn. I went out on LinkedIn. I went looking for stuff. Everything that's there happened via LinkedIn, right? If you know how to work it, it's amazing what that platform can do. Okay, so now, please notice, only now are we going to talk about preparing your marketing materials, which is the next step in a job search. Resume and LinkedIn profile, okay? Again, there are whole sessions on this, but let's talk about what a private sector resume looks like. So for those of you who have those lovely chunky 6 and 7 page resumes for the federal government, 2 pages is what a private sector resume looks like. It does not need to be 1 page, especially because the current format requires a summary section at the top. 2 pages is standard. So a 2-page resume. The font will be 12 point, not 11, not 10, not 9.5, no micro fonts. Why? Because the resume needs to be easily scanned. And if it's less than 12 points, people like me who need these to read anything can't see what the heck you're talking about. So all the work you've spent telling me how fabulous you are, if I can't read it, matters not. The margins will be as close to 1 inch as you can get it. A little smaller, but close to 1 inch. We want lots of white space. We want that resume to look very appealing and very approachable. Thou shalt have a headline and a summary section at the top of your resume, indicating sort of your target, your professional identity, the critical thing that somebody needs to know about you, and your key accomplishments. Because based on the research, we know that people take 7 to 10 seconds to look at a resume, and 10 is generous. They glance at it, they grab what they can in that first scan, and it goes in the call pile or the junk pile. So that block of text that is 5 or 6, lines long is not scannable. They won't get any of it. So the summary section is where all the good stuff goes. They look at that, they check the dates, they check a couple of titles, and in the call section it goes. They may read it more later, but they're not doing it right away. All right, please do something with the font. No Arial, no Times New Roman. They look a little dowdy at this point. There's some nice sans serif fonts, Helvetica, Tahomey, Calibri. Do a search for nice sans serif fonts. And just try it and see how your resume looks. It looks more modern. And sans serifs are a little more scannable on screens, which is how most people are looking at resumes these days. Please do not include your address in your resume. These suckers go everywhere. There is no point in putting your home address on a resume. What goes on is your name, your phone number, your email address, and your LinkedIn handle. And again, if you're like, I don't have a LinkedIn, we're going to get there. Don't you worry. Okay. Please, please, please No objective statements. No objective statements. They are so 20th century, and no references available upon request. So 20th century. Like I've been doing this long enough. I remember when that, disappeared, but don't put that on there. It doesn't belong on a resume any longer. The real estate's just too precious to waste on standard statements like that. Okay. There's your resume. So now we're going to talk everyone's favorite LinkedIn. Thou shalt have a LinkedIn profile. Sorry. The only people where I'm going to give you exceptions, if you are still employed by the intelligence services and you are forbidden from being on social media. I get it. And there are some of you where that is the case. I get it. Okay, so you're exempt. You should still have all of the sections of LinkedIn profile written in a Word document. So, because if you're here, you're clearly thinking that you may not forever be employed at a place where you can't have a LinkedIn profile. So you can then block copy the text you've prepared into the LinkedIn profile you will eventually have. The other people where we can talk about how we want to use LinkedIn is if you happen to be one of those people, and there are a few, who have active stalkers. All right, social media, not necessarily the place you want to hang out. But both of those are really small percentages of the people I'm talking to. All the rest of y'all, LinkedIn profile is not an option. And I know everybody wants to lock it down and make this private and that private. If you're job seeking, the profile should be fully public, unless you have a stalker. Okay, fully public so people can find you. My profile is fully public. You don't need to be connected to me to see what's on my profile, to read what I've been posting. All right. Please take the time to Google search and create a vanity URL. If your LinkedIn address is your name plus a whole bunch of letters and numbers after it, that looks sloppy on a resume. It is easy to create a vanity URL in LinkedIn. We'll talk more about that next time or in a couple of weeks. But you can Google search this. Do a vanity URL. It makes you look like you know what's going on LinkedIn. For those of you whose headshot is 5 years old or more, an updated headshot is necessary for LinkedIn. And this might be a place where you want to invest some money in a LinkedIn headshot. Fun fact, I, on LinkedIn, connected with Ginny Thomas, who, if you saw the article in the Metro section, was giving free headshots to federal employees, and then Post did a little article on her. So I reached out on LinkedIn. Ginny and I are now connected. And she is still offering discounted headshots for federal employees. So again, I'm sorry, it's not for everyone, but if you are a Fed, she is listed there and she's offering discounted headshots. So there are resources out there even for headshots. Please write your LinkedIn profile in the first person. It's more conversational. When a recruiter or somebody comes to find it, you are actually talking to them. And it changes the way you tell the story a little from your resume. So in an ideal world, it's not your resume just pasted into LinkedIn. It's a slightly more conversational description of you and your career. Compose a catchy headline. Do not use the default. LinkedIn will default whatever your last title was. Boring. And you can get a lot more in there and a lot of keywords. So there is, in the resources, the share through headline analyzer, which I learned about at a different LinkedIn workshop, is a nice way to play with your headline to see how engaging it is. And my current LinkedIn headline was run through the share through headline analyzer, and I did tweak it in response to the feedback I was getting. So you want a headline that really grabs people when they come to your profile. You will have an about section, which is like the summary section of your resume, where you're going to tell them all the best things because they're not going to read that deeply. And you're going to make sure that you use all of the available slots, which I think approach now 100 in the skills section. All right, because before we move on, I will just point out that LinkedIn does not make its money off you and I in premium. That's not where it makes its money. LinkedIn makes its money from selling a LinkedIn recruiter to companies and executive recruiters. And so they can go into LinkedIn and they can do all the searches they want. They can look for all the keywords they want. They can pick a profile and say, I like this profile. Show me more profiles like this. And you will never know they were there until they reach out and say, would you like to come in and, let's connect. I'd like to talk to you about a job. So Everything that we're doing on LinkedIn, yes, is there for people who come through the front, because some employers do come through the front end. But we are also focusing on who is looking at this from the backside of LinkedIn. And that's where those keywords become, that's where that headline, that's where the keywords and the key phrases get spread throughout your LinkedIn profile. It's to capture those people who you can't see running through your LinkedIn profile. Though we certainly hope they're there, right? Because those are recruiters and employers. All right. So much more on LinkedIn. Again, there's a free workshop just on LinkedIn tomorrow. Think about attending that. All right. Now, got your marketing materials done, your networking is up and cranking, and somebody has called you in for an interview. Be ready for interviews and start preparing now. Way too often, my clients are like, "Oh, we can talk about interviews. I haven't got one scheduled." I'm like, no. Oh no. We do interview prep now, like right now, because it takes time to be really ready for an interview. Even those of you who are really good at winging it, and I'm good at winging it too. Oh no, we still prepare for interviews. Always, we prepare for interviews. There will be a whole session on this. So again, high level, but here's the things to think about. Be ready for the standard interview questions, right? Tell me about yourself, which is often like, walk me through your background, tell me a bit about yourself. Everyone who's not ready for this one tends to fluff this one. We do not start it. I was born the youngest of 3 children in Peoria. No, we start it with, I am a career counselor in private practice in the Washington, D.C. area. I've been working with clients for 25 years. My specialties include career clarity and salary negotiation. I've written a book. I created a certification program. I have been awarded several major awards by professional associations. I'm a regular presenter. Went to the University of Virginia undergrad and George Washington University for my counseling degree. And I'm happy to answer any other questions you've got for me tonight. Right? And I literally just made that up. I wasn't planning on actually doing that. It needs to be, here's all the things you need to know about me right away, right up front. And you can often seal the deal for an interview with this question if they ask it. Please be ready for, why do you want this job? This one, frequently people are like, aside from the fact that I desperately need one, I don't have a good answer for that. Have a good answer for that. For each job, why do you want this job? Why are you looking? All right. Part of the major layoffs in the federal government, maybe, or my organization lost its funding, maybe, or I've relocated from across the country. But you need to have an explanation for why you are looking that is not, my boss is a psychopath. That's not going to fly. They're going to think, is it your boss or is it you? Like, are you a problem or are they a problem? So we want a positive reason for why you are looking. And please be ready for the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, I know everyone hates this question. It's actually not a bad interview question. Why? One, it's a standard interview question, so it lets them know whether you've done your preparation or not. 2, it's a judgment question. Do you have an answer for this that sounds ambitious enough, but is not like, stabbing your boss in the back and pushing them out from their position? Like, do you have a good, coherent answer for this? So please think about, and again, on my website, there's an interview prep handout, and we talk about, how you might handle this question. Oh, and then please be ready for the 4 horsemen of the interview apocalypse. The greatest strength, your greatest weakness, your greatest success, and your greatest failure. It is unusual for all 4 of these to go riding through a single interview, but at least one of them will. Usually greatest strength, frequently greatest weakness. Even if they don't ask you your greatest success, you should be ready to tell them about this in the interview. And greatest failure, not terribly often, but if they ask you and you're not ready for this one, it can be a very unpleasant, uncomfortable moment. So be ready for the greatest. And be ready for behavioral interviewing. If you're in the career chats, there's much as behavioral interviewing is dead, the cover letter is dead, yes, no, maybe, but In my experience, behavioral interviewing happens actually pretty naturally in an interview. You say some airy-fairy thing like, I'm really good at, crisis management. And they're like, yeah, what does exactly that mean? So tell me a story about a crisis you managed. When you hear that, tell me a story, give me an example. You should think that's a behavioral interview question. And the answer is not, well, generally I approach a crisis with, it's not a general. It's a, here's my story. And the story should be in the PAR format: problem, action, result. Sometimes you hear it called STAR: situation, task, action, result. I prefer PAR. It's rule of threes, short and sweet. Here's the situation or the problem. Here is what I did. Please, I, not we. They're not hiring the we, they're hiring the I. So here's what I did, and here's the result. And so another lovely homework assignment, in addition to all the other interview questions you can already start prepping for. I always tell clients I want 7 to 10 stories, PAR stories, at least 5 that illustrate a strength that you would list as, these are my greatest strengths, and then a few more for good measure. Right? Have those ready. Make sure that you're telling them at the appropriate level of detail. Like, don't really wander into the weeds too much, and bring it home with that. And here is the result. Okay. If in interview prep, I often encourage people to do flashcards. Going back to grade school, do flashcards with interview questions on them. Open up your own personal Zoom meeting, hit the record button, pull up a flashcard, and deliver your answer to the camera. It will be really uncomfortable the first few times, but if you keep doing it, you will start to get the rhythm of the answer. And it's a great way, if you don't have a spouse or a dog or somebody to talk to about your interview prep. One client said she did it with her middle schooler. And I was like, great, because the middle schooler gets to see how you think through and prepare for interview questions. So yeah, if you've got kids at home, make them help you with interview prep. All right, look at where we are. So then you are going to get an offer, and you are going to get an offer. I know right now it doesn't feel that way. You're going to get an offer. This process works if you work it. There will be an offer at the end of it. How long that will be, I don't know, but there will be an offer at the end of it. So here's what happens when you receive an offer. You are going to negotiate that offer. Yes, you're going to negotiate that offer, because you should always negotiate your job offer. You don't have to be difficult about it. We'll talk about it in salary negotiations, but you should be ready to negotiate. So when you get a job offer, I want you to be ready to say all sorts of happy and excited things. That is wonderful news. I'm so excited. That's thrilling. That's terrific. Great. Just don't say yes. Not yet. Say, can I get that in writing? Would you shoot me an email? I'm just so excited. I want to make sure I remember all of this. And can I get the benefits package to review? And then when do you need to hear back from me? Because that's when you want to do the negotiation. When you get back to them and you've had a moment to calm down, to think through this, to plan for the negotiation, to review the benefits package, to check in with friends on what they think you should be asking for, and then you will negotiate at that point, when you're going back to them and going, okay, I've got a few questions. One of the questions is, can you do better on the salary? I was getting 6 weeks of leave. I was assuming you'd be able to match that. I've got a family wedding in 4 weeks. So could we push the start date back until, April 1 or whatever the 5-week date is? Just a set of simple questions, but you're going to need time to prepare those in order to negotiate, right? And then we will, like I said, say nice things. Just don't say yes when they need to hear back from you. When you negotiate, it's just some questions, right? Currently get 4 weeks of leave. I'm assuming you'd be able to match that. I know for people who are leaving the federal government, that leave is a really, really precious thing. Don't just give it away. Ask. What the heck? They might be able to give it to you. I encouraged my brother to do this when he last did his job search, and he was like, I got more leave. I'm like, yeah. If you ask, they frequently give it to you. So ask. You can either just, do you have any flexibility on the salary? Or here's where I was hoping to get. And be ready with this phrase, right? The salary range based on my research was, this to this. and I was hoping to come at the top of the range. Oh, we can't do the top of the range. Okay, great. How close can you get me? I can't get you to 6 weeks. How close can you get me? How close can you get me? Right? We want to keep the anchor at the high end of wherever you're having this discussion and keep pushing them as close to that as we can get. So take how close can you get me and just tuck that back in your brain and pull it out when you're doing a salary negotiation. How close can you get me to that? Again, March, I know it's more than a month out, but we'll be talking salary negotiation in all its detailed glory in that session. All right, so now you've got an offer. Congratulations, this is wonderful. You've negotiated. Please make sure you get all of those details in writing at the time of the offer. They may give you an offer letter. That offer letter may not include the work from home that you've negotiated, may not include the, leave without pay you negotiated for that, once in a lifetime family vacation that's already booked and paid for. It may not be in there. Okay. And as we have all learned again this week, it is possible for you to negotiate with a boss who is no longer employed by the time you get to the job. They're gone already. It happens all the time, sadly. And so the person you negotiated this with is no longer there. And there's no one who remembers the deal. So make sure you get it in writing, even if that means saying, this is great. Thank you for the offer letter. These other things that we talked about, can I just send you an email outlining what we talked about? And then you can look at it and make sure that I understand this completely. And then you type up, thank you so much. It was so exciting. I, got the offer. Here's my understanding of all the things we talked about and where we came out on all of it. Is this your understanding as well? Send that. If you are a distrustful person, send it read receipts so that you know that they got it. But really, if in 6 months they're like, I don't remember okaying leave for that family. Oh, no, we talked about this. The family vacation, the once in a lifetime safari in Africa. Yeah, that my grandparents are paying for. Yeah, we talked about this. I don't remember that. Well, here's the email, the date, the clear statement of all those things. HR usually looks at that and says that will stand as a contemporaneous record of the agreement. And, we will abide by that. In most cases, I'm not going to say 100%, but if you don't have it in writing, I've sadly, I've had to sit with clients who did not have things that they negotiated in writing, and their boss had left, or the boss claimed they couldn't remember, and you don't have a lot of leverage at that point. So anything, just an email that you send at the time will suffice in most cases to keep the conversation moving in the right direction. All right. So now we're going to talk about online job postings because that is not a job search. Looking at online job postings, applying to online job postings is not a job search. Again, for those of you who entered late, they are frequently not real. They're just there to catch resumes and for people to add to databases. And some of them are actual scams. They are collecting personal data, right? Having you fill out all of these forms and collecting personal data. So please, please, please be very, very thoughtful about online postings. If you've not heard of the organization, Google them. If it looks too good to be true, go to the company's website and see if that actually exists. If the job is posted on the company's website, do some due diligence on the online postings. And recognize that even if you do apply online, that is simply the start of the process. So online postings now are getting 200, 300, 400. I talked to a client who said they had a job posting and 700 people applied. And this was for a pretty senior specialized job. There were not 700 qualified people for that job, no way, no how. But what happens is there are now all these AI tools that will apply to endless jobs for you. And that may seem like a really lovely thing. You don't have to do anything. You just upload your cover letter and your resume and your LinkedIn, and the little chat bot just applies to jobs. The problem is that the employer is now getting overwhelmed and they're not even reading the applications that come in. If they've got an applicant tracking system that uses AI to analyze them, maybe they're pulling some resumes that way, but they don't have time for this. Most employers do not have time to read everything that's coming in. And so if all you're doing is applying and not hearing anything, that's really soul crushing and it doesn't really mean anything. It is not a commentary on how well qualified you are. That's just statistically what's likely to happen. Okay, so since we're not into soul crushing tonight, let's talk about what you can use these online postings for, because they are really helpful. So among the things that I want you to do when you go in to look at Indeed or LinkedIn is I want you to observe company names. Because if a company's got a job posting, clearly they're hiring. And so what does that company do? Who are they? Where are they? And should they be on my target list? Right? So it's a great way to add to the target list. You are going to be looking at those job postings for keywords for your resume and for your LinkedIn profile. And this is when AI can work in your favor. Like pull those job postings down, throw them into Perplexity or Chat GPT, say, analyze these job postings and tell me give me a list of keywords and key qualifications. And this is what AI does so fabulously well. And it will turn up a list of keywords and qualifications. And then you make sure that those are sprinkled liberally in your resume and on your LinkedIn profile, right? It's a great place to find titles, especially if you're coming again out of the private sector or consulting firms. Like, titles are weird. And so you could start to see what titles are and what the job responsibilities listed for those titles are and start to get a sense of like, where approximately should I be coming in, right? You are going to start to see salary information posted. Once New York City required that any company that had 4 or more people employed in New York City had to post salary ranges, you started to see salary ranges on more job postings. They are often really wide, like $100,000 wide. But this is salary data and we're starting to see it in job postings. Anytime you see salary data, grab that sucker and copy it. Print it, or if you're, don't want to waste paper, keep it someplace because you can use that, right? The job may be in San Francisco and you're applying in DC, but it's the same job and this is how much they're paying. So in your salary negotiation, you're like, well, based on the market research and this recent posting, this is what the market is for this position. And I was thinking I was going to be coming in close to the top of the range. And now you've got evidence that somebody else is paying that much for this position. And they're like, oh, I can't quite do that. Okay, how close can you get me? So look for salary information that's online postings. It's just interesting market information if you can think about it this way. Because we've all heard like, Amazon's laying off people and, Blue Origin is laying off people. Estee Lauder apparently is laying off people. Chevron's doing a global layoff. There are lots of people laying off. And you will find postings for all of those companies online. Because companies lay people off over here and hire people over here. And so if you look at the job postings, like, okay, they are hiring. Who are they hiring? What are they looking for? Do they have a new initiative? Have they bought something? Have they sold something? Like, what's going on? Why is this job posting up there? Right? You want to be a little bit of a detective. All right. So let's say it happens and you find an actual real job posting for an actual real company and you apply online. Great, good. Please do that. And please do that as soon as possible. Frequently, clients will say, "Oh, I found this job posting, and it closes like in 2 weeks, and so I'll get an application in." I'm like, "No, now, now. The closer to when it's posted, the better." Because some organizations they get a little excited when they first post something, and they look the first couple of days at applications, and then they stop looking. So if yours comes in at the end, you're like number 999 out of 100, 1,002 applications. They're not going to read yours. So if you're like, I don't know, I should think about applying to that job. Like as Yoda would say, either do or do not. Don't think about it. Apply and then think. It's going to work much better for you. And initially, it takes a long time to get job applications done online. You'll get better at it, right? You're gonna be much more efficient at that. So you look at that and go, I'm gonna put an application in, spend a few hours on that, it's done. That is just the beginning, though. As soon as you apply to something online, you're going to go out and tap your network to find somebody who knows somebody inside that organization who can bring your resume to the attention of the hiring manager, perhaps introduce you to the hiring manager, because that is essentially putting you at the front of the line. Again, they got 1,000 resumes, and here's their friend saying, Yeah, I'm going to pick on Linda. She's my colleague. Here's Linda Era, and she's amazing. Why don't you talk to Linda? And they're thinking, I could read 1,000 resumes, or I could talk to this person who's been referred to me. I'm talking to the person who's been referred to me. And sometimes that's the only conversation that happens, right? The final thing I will say about online postings, the data is a little wonky on this, but we know the vast majority of jobs that are out there will never be posted anywhere with a recruiter or online. They will be hired through passive recruiting, somebody going into LinkedIn, finding a candidate or a set of candidates and inviting them to interview, or you networking, in advance of them posting a job and them deciding, I don't need to post that job. I've got Linda. I've got the perfect candidate. I'm done. So online postings, because they're such a small part of the job market, you really don't want to spend too much of your job search time with them. And the time you do spend, I want you to be using them instead of feeling like you've been sucker punched by them. Okay. All right. So when you're all done with your job search and you've landed your job, you've got it in writing, you will thank your network. You will go out on LinkedIn, send a general thank you note, and then you will send personal notes to the people who have been most helpful to you. And this is how you're going to maintain that network. Because for anyone who's sitting here going, I really don't have a network, I don't have a big network, you do have a network. And the job of networking is to grow your network. But once you've invested in that network, I don't want you to let it go dormant again after this job search. It's really important that we keep our networks alive and thriving. They can do wonderful things for us. So having gone through all of this, what I've just described, and built a lovely network and landed a job, you are then going to tend to that network. You're going to say thank you. You're going to be active on LinkedIn. You're going to go to conferences and other events, and you're going to keep that network alive so it's there the next time you need it. All righty. Next week, February 25th, 7:30, we are going to do everyone's favorite topic. We are going to do networking. It will be wonderful. You will love it. Don't miss it. At this point, we're going to turn off I'm going to stop the share, and we're going to turn off the recording. So, Linda, can you get to the stop recording?